What's up, people? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Trenton Steele, aka Fatherrdiff. Do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe right now because you guys are gonna love this video. We're gonna talk about what is aperture, what does it do, why do we call it that, what is an f-stop. We're gonna go over all of that, and I'm not gonna waste you guys' time. I'll make this real brief, and then we'll go into behind the scenes of a photo shoot that I did. So let's go ahead and jump into it right now. All right, what is aperture? To make it simple, aperture is how your lens determines the depth of field. And what the depth of field means, pretty much what's in focus and how much of your subject is in focus. That's pretty much all that is. So depth of field is basically how much of your subject is in focus and what else is in focus. Like, look at me right here. I'm in focus. The background is a little bit blurred out. So that's considered your depth of field. All right, so let's talk about what it means when you have a low aperture versus a high aperture. The lower the aperture, the less you're gonna have in focus with the background. Meaning only your subject is gonna be in focus and your background is gonna be completely blurred out. Now, as you go up higher to like an f22 or an f16, you're gonna have your subject in focus as well as a good bit of the background. All right, so that's the difference between a low aperture and a high aperture. Now let's dive a little bit deeper. Okay, think of it like this. Your pupil is the same thing as your lens. If you ever notice that if you've been inside all day and you step outside into the light, your eyes hurt, that's because your pupil was really wide open because they were trying to let in more light considering you were inside and there's not that much light inside of your house. So what it's doing is it's closing back down to let less light inside of your eye. All right, now if you've been outside all day and you go inside, your pupils go up. Think of it as if you ever watched a movie and the medical personnel comes in and they're trying to look at the patient to see if they're dead. They open up their eye, they flash the light, and they'll be like, their pupil isn't dilating, or their pupil's dilating, so they are alive. When that light is shining into their eye is really just going to close down. So that's pretty much what an aperture is relevant to your pupil. Okay, now let's go a little bit deeper. Let's talk about how aperture is measured. Aperture is measured in f-stops. F-stop is basically how they measure the amount of light, or how they measure light that is going into the camera. Okay, so if you have an f-stop of 2, that's a very wide f-stop. If you have an f-stop of 22, it's very narrow, but you're gonna get a lot more in focus. Okay, it's a little backwards, I know it. However, to give you guys an example of what I'm talking about, what I did was I took pictures with my new 90mm lens by Fujifilm, and I shot at every single available f-stop on this lens from f2 to f16 to give you guys a complete example of how it's going to affect your pictures. Okay, now I did not change the ISO and I did not change the shutter speed, simply because I wanted to show you how it affects it. We're not talking about changing shutter speed, we're not talking about ISO. So if you notice at f2, the picture is very perfectly exposed and everything. That's because I set it for that and I didn't change it from there forward. So it's gonna get a little darker. Now, I will say that as I edited these pictures, I pushed them a couple stops so that you could see. Otherwise, by the time I got to f16, it just would have been a black image. So the last image was pushed 5 stops. 5 stops means it was measured. Stops is a measurement of light. We're not gonna get into that. It's a whole nother side note for another day. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump into it right now. Now, if you look at this first one, it's at f2. If you look at this next one, it's at f2.8. This one is at f4, 5, 6, 8, 11, and 16. And if you look at f2 and f16, it's a really big difference. Really big difference. Had I not pushed this picture 5 stops in post, and what that means is I just added more artificial light in Lightroom so that we could see this image, you wouldn't have been able to see anything. It just would have been a dark picture, straight black, over with. All right. Now, if we bring in 5, 6 and compare it to 2, you know, you have, I would call, I guess, a good balance of the subject and the background, depending on which look you want. Normally, Only people who shoot at f/16, they're mainly doing landscape more than likely. So most portraits are going to be done at 5.6 or f/4 or f/2.8. So the only time I would shoot an f/2 or an f/2.8 is if I'm doing headshots and I just have a desired look of that background being very, very blurred. Or if I'm shooting at f/5.6, then that means I want a good bit of the subject and the background together. So I normally try to stay at 5.6 and lower. So I hope this was a clear breakdown of aperture and f-stop so that you guys kind of understand it. Right now I'm gonna jump into the behind the scenes shoot with the 90mm lens by Fujifilm. This guy right here, it's a beast, by the way. Fujifilm is legit. So we're gonna go behind the scenes with this, and I'm just shooting it. I'm getting several f-stops of, I think the highest I went, like I said, is 5.6 for these specifically. And I had to test out this lens, and I also tested out the Fujifilm X-T5. So if you want to see what that looks like, stick around. We'll talk back at the end of the video. And yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really love this 90mm lens. It is crazy. It is the focal length that I've been looking for with the Fujifilm. Originally I had the 56mm, which was equivalent to like almost an 85mm on a 30mm frame sensor, and I just didn't like it. I found it weird kind of trying to frame that lens, and I don't know. But this 90mm lens is perfect for me. I can get a lot closer to the subject as well. If you look at this picture, I'm like probably this far from her head, and I like that. Versus the 56mm, I had to be like further back from my subject, and I didn't really like that. And like I said, I didn't really like the way I was framing it with the 56mm. It just didn't. I don't know. It was something about it I didn't really like. I thought I did, but I didn't. You know, the f-stop was like 1.2 or something like that. That was cool, but I just didn't. No. So this 90mm lens is now my favorite portrait lens for Fujifilm. Yeah, if you're thinking about getting it, it's worth every penny. I got this from KEH. I got the X-T5 from KEH, and I really appreciate them, so shout out to them. And yeah, again, hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like this video, comment, share, subscribe. Also, what did you think about the aperture part? Did you guys find that useful? Should I give more tips on stuff like that? Did you like the behind the scenes with the 90mm? I know this is kind of a 2-in-1, but I just wanted to kill two birds with one stone. So yeah, hope you guys liked it. See you next time.